Oh, righty, booby tubes. Another one of Kip's clips. Well, I knew this was happening. I didn't know the ruling was going to happen today. But we've got the court. It's funny how the BBC have worded that, you know, it's very diplomatic on them. They've not mentioned South Africa or the word genocide. But let's see if what they're saying.
Put added pressure on Israel's allies, though.
Well, it does, because if the UN's highest court has said, for example, they might not, but if they've said, Israel, you must immediately suspend your military campaign, and Israel doesn't, I think they've already said they wouldn't, then it's quite hard politically for the Americans, the Brits and others to say, we agree with you, Israel, keep on fighting, because then those countries would effectively be defying the will of this court.
Now,
Jeremy, do stick with us.
People that have been in the conspiracy game for a long time will remember in the day Alex Jones constantly going on about the blue helmets, the blue helmets, the blue helmets, the blue helmets, the UN, the UN, the UN, because of the way the United Nations works, the division of power at the Security Council especially, it has stopped.
You're watching
powerful
BBC
nations
News. If you're just joining us, these are live
want.
pictures from the International Court of Justice in The Hague in the Netherlands, where we are expecting a hearing to begin imminently.
Is this us witnessing the death of the United Nations?
This is a
Is this going to fracture the United Nations and make it useless?
By South Africa. Now, the justices
if the highest court, the International Court of Justice
ruling later on today on whether it believes Israel has potentially committed genocide. Now, this is a provisional ruling. I'm joined in the studio by our international editor, Jeremy Bowen. Jeremy, we really do stress provisional ruling. What exactly does that mean?
Well, it means that they're going to be talking about this case, if they decide to hear it, through the next couple of years, perhaps. But under the way that they operate, they can mandate that there are some immediate measures that could be taken, provisional measures as they're known. That starts with the suspension of military operations in and around Gaza, and Israel allowing access to adequate food, medical care, sanitation, hygiene, that Israel doesn't prevent the destruction of Palestinian life in Gaza. Those are some of the, I think it's 8 points that the South Africans have asked in all of this. So it doesn't say, if they grant that, and they might not, but if they grant it, it doesn't mean that the court's decided that Israel would be guilty of genocide. It means that they have decided that South Africa has made a plausible case that needs to be discussed and that these things need to happen. And while countries are meant to follow what the ICJ does, and it's a court, it's the UN's highest court, and it's set up to deal with disputes between countries, not between individuals. And that's actually one reason why they're not talking about Hamas here. They're not saying that any decision they make is binding on Hamas, because Hamas is not a state. So they will come up with these rulings, and then politically, even though Israel might want to keep on fighting, it then becomes quite difficult for its allies to continue supporting it the way that they have.
For viewers around the world just joining us, you're watching pictures from the International Court of Justice. You can see the justices and the people in the court standing there. This is the ICJ at the Peace Palace in The Hague. These are the justices walking in now. There are 17 permanent justices, plus one representative from South Africa and one from Israel. This is a case brought by South Africa against Israel, with South Africa accusing Israel of committing genocide in its action in Gaza. Well, of course, that military action by Israel
actually say that,
since the
if
Hamas
you were just to read the ticker tape,
the 7th of
it seems to
October.
be a UN
We're expecting the hearing to start imminently, and then the justices will issue their provisional ruling. Potentially
South Africa are
within
accusing
the
them
next
of
hour or so. We
genocide.
will continue following with this
25,000 dead.
Jeremy
Small
Bowen, our
village in
international
it, small
editor,
town.
is with me in the studio. Jeremy, a provisional ruling, but you mentioned earlier that a proper ruling, if you like, could take as long as 2 years.
Well, it's a very long and convoluted process, and it's not a court that delivers instant results. But what this does do is give an indication as to their thinking and as to the
it's the same with this post office stuff, right? This has been known for some time, and people are just like, oh, the BBC drama. Now need to pay attention to all the post office stuff. Everybody that was well deep and guilty
and punishment of the crime of genocide in the Gaza Strip,
died, moved
South
away.
Africa versus Israel. Judge Robinson, who duly participated in both the deliberation and the final vote, is, for reasons made known to me, unable to take his seat on the bench today. I would like to welcome the eminent representatives of the Republic of South Africa and the State of Israel who are in the Great Hall of Justice today. In particular, I recognize the presence of Her Excellency, Ms. Naledi Pandor, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of the Republic of South Africa. I recall that on 29 December 2023, South Africa filed in the registry of the court an application instituting proceedings against Israel concerning alleged violations in the Gaza Strip of obligations under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, to which I shall refer as the Genocide Convention or the Convention. The application of South Africa contained a request for the indication of provisional measures submitted with reference to Article 41 of the statute and to Articles 73, 74, and 75 of the Rules of Court. In accordance with the usual practice, I shall not read the introductory paragraphs of the order which set out the procedural history of the case. I shall also omit or summarize some other paragraphs. I shall therefore begin the reading of the order at paragraph 13.
You asleep yet? I want the Netflix version.
In the order, the court begins by recalling the immediate context in which the present case came before it. It observes that on 7 October 2023, Hamas and other armed groups present in the Gaza Strip carried out an attack in Israel, killing more than 1,200 persons, injuring thousands, and abducting some 240 people, many of whom continue to be held hostage. Following this attack, Israel launched a large-scale military operation in Gaza by land, air, and sea, which is causing massive civilian casualties, extensive destruction of civilian infrastructure, and the displacement of the overwhelming majority of the population in Gaza. The court is acutely aware of the extent of the human tragedy that is unfolding in the region and is deeply concerned about the continuing loss of life and human suffering. The ongoing conflict in Gaza has been addressed in the framework of several organs and specialized agencies of the United Nations. In particular, reservations have been adopted by the General Assembly and the Security Council of the United Nations, referring to many aspects of the conflict. The scope of the present case submitted to the court, however, is limited, as South Africa has instituted these proceedings under the Genocide Convention. The court then turns to the conditions needed to be fulfilled in order for it to indicate provisional measures. With respect to the question of prima facie jurisdiction, the court observes that it may indicate provisional measures only if the provisions relied on by the applicant appear prima facie to afford a basis on which its jurisdiction could be founded, but it need not satisfy itself in a definitive manner that it has jurisdiction as regards the merits of the case. In the present case, South Africa seeks to found the jurisdiction of the court on Article 36, Paragraph 1 of the Statute of the Court, and on Article 9 of the Genocide Convention. The court must therefore first determine whether those provisions prima facie confer upon it jurisdiction to rule on the merits of the case, enabling it, if the other necessary conditions are fulfilled, to indicate provisional measures. Article 9 of the Genocide Convention provides, I quote, disputes between the contracting parties relating to the interpretation, application, or fulfillment of the present convention, including those relating to the responsibility of a state for genocide or for any of the other acts enumerated in Article 3 shall be submitted to the International Court of Justice at the request of any of the parties to the dispute." End of quote. South Africa and Israel are both parties to the Genocide Convention, and neither of them has entered a reservation to Article 9 or any other provision of the Convention. The Court then recalls that Article 9 of the Genocide Convention makes its jurisdiction conditional on the existence of a dispute relating to the interpretation, application, or fulfillment of the Convention. A dispute is a disagreement on a point of law or fact.
Oh
a
my
conflict of
god,
legal
man, this
views or
is
interests between
mind-numbingly
parties.
fucking
In order for a
boring.
dispute to exist, it must be shown that the claim of one party is
It's
positively
like
opposed
listening,
by
it's
the
like
other.
reading in a fucking
The two sides must hold
an insurance
clearly
document or
opposite
something in
views
it.
concerning the question of the performance or non-performance of certain international
You can get it
obligations.
on the
To
BBC's.
determine whether a
If you want to
dispute
follow
exists in
this.
the present case, the Court cannot limit itself to noting that one of the parties
I'll wait for
maintains
the
the Convention
highlights
applies while
tonight.
the other denies it. Since South
Alright,
Africa
boob
has
tubes.
invoked as a basis for the Court's jurisdiction
you've got the
the
details
compromissory
if you
clause
want
of
to
the Genocide Convention,
And listen to this, but
the
I'll
Court must
warn you,
also
it will
ascertain at the
put you
present
to
stage of the
sleep.
proceedings
And tune in tonight for a live stream about 9:30ish, I think. Alrighty, boob tubes. Catches!
Clips, clips.
And remember, citizens, always subscribe. Hit the notification bell as well. And $19.95 plus shipping and handling will keep you out of hell.